You're listening to the Greeks Gridiron. Now here's your host, Ethan Hristodoulou.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Greeks Gridiron. I am Ethan Hristodoulou, and today we finally get to make our very first set of picks for the UFL, with kickoff just about 2 days away now. We have the Birmingham Stallions playing the Arlington Renegades in a champions versus champions contest to kick things off and open up the season this coming Saturday. So I invite you all, whether you're a UFL fan or not, maybe you're new to the league, whatever it may be, comment down below. Who do you think's winning this weekend? Who's going to have a great year? Who's going to find themselves in the gutter come season's end? What are you looking forward to, and what do you expect from this season? But without further ado, we're going to dive right in, beginning with the very first matchup. As I said, we are looking at a champions versus champions contest between the Birmingham Stallions and the Arlington Renegades here. Now, the Stallions coming in dripping with NFL talent. You have wide receivers like Gary Jennings and Amari Rogers, Deion Kane, Marvin Wilson, defensive tackle Jalen Twyman, cornerback Mark Gilbert, defensive end Taco Charlton, quarterback Matt Corral, who might just end up being the starting quarterback for the team. Depends on what happens here. News isn't official yet as to who starting QB is, but there is just so much former NFL talent on this team. It's kind of insane. Defense has been the name of the game for this team, while the offense took a step forward last year and kind of stole the show a bit. Year after year, for the first couple of seasons in the USFL, the Birmingham Stallions defense came through week in and week out. And right now, as far as concerns for them, I just want to know who the quarterback is. As of right now, as I'm recording, there is no confirmation. By the time this gets out to you all, I'm assuming there's going to be confirmation here, and I'm leaning towards it being Matt Corral because they double posted about being 2 days away featuring him. We will get the news. Again, I'm recording this as 12:27 right now, Eastern time. So in the next 30 minutes or so, depth charts have to be released for that game. I expect it to be Matt Corral, but if it's Jamar Smith, I wouldn't be too surprised either. Those are the two guys that I'm leaning towards here. Obviously, Jamar, a big part of the championship team from the first USFL season a couple of years ago. On the Renegades side, though, quarterback Luis Perez is back in, looking to help lead the Renegades to back-to-back spring titles. Tight end Sal Cannella is back for them as well. He was the team's leading receiver in 2023. I'll be curious to see how the wide receiver room looks and who really steps up, because it really was like the Sal Cannella show for them as far as receiving is concerned here. So I think there is some question marks in the wide receiver room. And then in the running back department, Devion Smith leading the backfield. He was a touchdown machine for the Renegades last year, tying the league lead in the XFL in touchdowns at 7 for that first spot. And then the defense, bit of a strength for the Renegades last season, ranking 3rd in yards per game allowed, 4th in points per game allowed, but they were a really good unit, and you got a big addition this offseason in a guy like cornerback Ajeni Harris, who led the XFL with 5 interceptions this past season there. Of course, you have outside linebacker Donald Payne as well leading that group. Some personnel changes will bring questions that need to be answered for this defense, though. Can they look as good or better than they did last year? Do they maybe take a step back? There are some things worth looking at here. But as for who I think is going to come out on top, week 1, it's always like assumption week. You never really know what's going to happen here. We're doing our best to kind of just assume based off moves and players on rosters here until the season gets going. You don't truly know, but I can't help but lean towards the Birmingham Stallions. They are just loaded with talent. They are back-to-back spring champions for a reason. What they've got going on over there as an organization has just been very fun to watch the last couple of years. But I do think the Arlington Renegades, champions of the XFL, do bring up a good fight. I'm thinking of a scoreline, something along the lines of 24-20. Really good competitive game between two teams, the Birmingham Stallions just edging them out by a hair when all is said and done. Second game we're going to look at here, we have ourselves the St. Louis Battlehawks being hosted by the Michigan Panthers here. Battlehawks finishing the year last year with a bit of a disappointing crash and burn. AJ McCarron back for them to help lead the way and right the wrongs of that disappointing end to last season here. With the UFL Championship set in St. Louis, there is plenty of reason to be excited if you are a Battlehawks fan. Wide receivers Hakeem Butler and Darius Shepard, a 1,000 yard wide receiver duo. duo for the team, looks to claim the title of best receiving duo in the UFL and in spring football as a whole. And running back will be a bit of an intrigue as Brian Hill, the team's leading rusher, is no longer there. Defensively, the unit was overall average in 2023, so improving here should be key for them and a big part of what this season looks like, led by players considering defensive end Travis Feeney, disruptive machine for the team last year, linebacker Willie Harvey, cornerback Brandon Sebastian. This is a defense that needs to be more than just average, though, if they want to look to potentially host the UFL championship come season's end here. And then on the Panthers side of things, you have EJ Perry, who, despite a couple of stints leaving the Panthers and coming back during the duration of the offseason and during the NFL's actual season, is back after what was an incredible two-game performance that helped catapult the Panthers into the playoffs last year. I will say, I don't know if what we got from those final two games out of EJ Perry last season are going to happen again and maybe go forward into this season, but it is one of those things that I was just hoping and praying that we were going to get the opportunity to find out about, and I'm excited to see him on the Panthers, and I'm hoping he gets the green light as the starter. Wide receiver's been a bit of an issue for the Panthers ever since, honestly, 2022, but Trey Quinn is back, but the rest of the room has been a bit revamped. You bring in guys like Devin Gray and Jordan Sewell. I think we could have ourselves a much better passing attack over there in, I almost said Carolina, in Detroit. And then running back, that is going to be what really sets this team apart. Yes, you lose Reggie Corbin, who was a big piece of the Panthers the last couple of seasons, but they are bringing in both running back Wes Hill and Matt Colburn, two elite running backs in the USFL the last couple of seasons here. For those of you who don't know, Matt Colburn, I would say as steady as they come for the Stars the last couple of seasons in the USFL. Wes Hill himself, an absolute monster through 8 games in the USFL last season for the New Orleans Breakers. I mean, the guy was a running and receiving threat. The offense could be very exciting coming out of Michigan this year. Defensively, led by guys like defensive end Breland Speaks, who had 9 sacks in 2023, and all USFL linebacker Frank Ginda. This should be a pretty formidable unit, but they did have a lot of struggles last year. However, I do point to a lot of the offensive inconsistencies and inability to sustain drives as to why the Panthers struggled so much on defense. The offense last year was not great to watch, and I think was a big reason as to why this team finished the season 4-6. And it wasn't until EJ Perry came in and kind of lit a fire under the team that we saw a little bit of better play. So I think if the offense can find some consistency going through this season, we might see a better Panthers team altogether, but a better defense at that. As for who I think is going to come out victorious in this one here, I am heavily leaning St. Louis Battlehawks. While there's a lot of excitement surrounding additions from the Panthers side of things, and of course EJ Perry being there, this passing attack that we saw from the St. Louis Battlehawks last season is making a return and in full force here. Obviously, like I said, running back will be something to watch, but overall, this Battlehawks team looks primed and ready to try to run it back and this time potentially host the championship themselves. I'm leaning towards Battlehawks 26-19 in this one here, so we'll see. I have just some concerns in regards to the Panthers. They have not been great the last couple of seasons in the USFL here, so it would take another big leap as they jumped 2 wins from the first season to the second season in the USFL. We'll need to see if they can improve upon that, and I do think EJ Perry helps it, but I'm definitely leaning the favorites in the Battlehawks here. Next, we take our focus to the DC Defenders and the San Antonio Brahmas here. The Defenders got Jordan Te'amu back. He is going to help lead this team, which was the XFL's best scoring offense in 2023, damn near averaging 30 points per game. They hit 298 total points scored last season, but the wide receiver room is going to look a little bit different. Both Chris Blair and Dontavian Jackson are both gone, which were accounted for 1,200 of the total passing yards this team had last year. Chris Rowland, Kiki Cootie, and Kelvin Harmon are some of the guys that are going to be looking to replace some of that production there. And then a really tough blow back on March 14th, running back Abram Smith, star in 2023 running back for the DC Defenders, down with an ACL injury. Sounds like he's out for the season, so you're going to have to look to guys like Puka Williams, Darius Hagans, Cameron Harris to replace that production there. So that is something worth watching as we go into this year. But defensively, all eyes will be on this defense, as this was was one of the worst defenses in the XFL last season, allowing the most yards per game and third most points per game last season. You, of course, have notable guys like Devin Bellamy, defensive end, linebacker Francis Bernard, defensive end Andre Mincy. There are some fun guys to look at this defense and go, if they can step up, they could probably lead a strong unit here. But some of those new additions that this team added during the offseason are going to have to help fill the gaps that were gaping during during the 2023 season of the XFL. On the Brahmas sides of things, you're looking at a team that absorbed much of the Houston Roughnecks roster, so this team could be significantly better than they were last year. Quarterback Chase Garbers got the nod as the starting quarterback, so you can look to see him lead the way for the offense to kick off the season. Cody Latimer, a massive piece of the Seattle Sea Dragons last season, will be leading the way as far as receivers go for what was a very up and down, I would say, passing attack for the Brahmas last season. He should help bring stability there. Running back is going to be a group that you really have to keep an eye on, though, because you have John Lovett, Anthony McFarland, and Bryson Allen. Nobody really that stands out by any means or had any significant production in spring football the last couple of seasons. So those will be guys to keep an eye on there and see who kind of emerges as the favorite. As the defense goes, when you look at that group there, you have some 2023 standouts in guys like defensive lineman Tim Ward. We have Delonte Scott to look at, linebacker Jordan Williams leading the way for this unit here. Arlington was a team that loved to bring pressure, and they were very good at doing it at that, with the third most sacks in the XFL last season at 24. I expect them to do more of the same, try to bring even more pressure to help mitigate some of those big chunk plays in the passing game. But overall, with so much turnover on the San Antonio Brahmas, because they just went from basically being like a team to kind of like they just absorbed the Roughnecks. Like, if you look at the amount of player turnover that this team had, a lot of these guys are coming from the Roughnecks themselves before they jumped over to the USFL side of the league. So I don't really know exactly what we're going to get from the Brahmas. They're kind of a wild card at this very moment here, so I can't just sit here and confidently say that I'm going to take them for the W. So while there is a decent amount of turnover offensively for the defenders, and I am very curious to see how this defense looks, I do like them just a little bit more, so I am going to take the defenders 22-18 over the Brahmas. It really just comes down to me not really knowing what we're going to get out of San Antonio this year, so until I see more from them, and who knows, maybe it's as soon as this week, I can't really confidently select them for a W here in week 1. And then last but certainly not least, we have the Memphis Showboats and the Houston Roughnecks wrapping things up on Sunday this weekend, going head-to-head here. This is one I'm very excited about because the Memphis Showboats were supposed to be the team I was going to root for, but I fell in love with the Houston Roughnecks, and at this point here, I'm going Roughnecks. I'm all in on it, so I'm sorry, Showboats fans. I will not be joining you to root on Case Cookus and company here, but there is so much to be excited about if you're a Showboats fan. As I mentioned, Case Cookus should be a massive upgrade at the quarterback spot for them with nearly 2,300 yards last season and 15 touchdowns. He did have 9 picks to go along with that, but overall he was huge for the Philadelphia Stars last year. You also go ahead and you add a guy like wide receiver Jonathan Adams and tight end Sage Surratt from the New Orleans Breakers during the offseason. Vinny Bapali is returning as well. There is plenty to be excited about as far as the passing game as a whole, and then running back Darius Victor, who has been very good for the New Jersey Generals over the last couple of spring football seasons in the USFL, will be the lead running back with Trey Williams and Titus Swen behind him. Defensively, this is not a team that was very flashy last year, but during that stretch run in the back half of the season where they started upsetting people and winning games and almost punched a ticket into the playoffs, and it's unfortunate that they started out so poorly because they could have been a fun playoff team to watch, I do think we're going to see more good defense from them. How good we get, I'm not 100% sure. When you look at a head coaching change like they had here, obviously things can change philosophically and how the defense is going to operate, but I will say that a lot of the personnel that's being brought back, we have guys like linebacker Anthony Butler, cornerback Delrick Abrams, linebacker Greg Reeves, Jeffrey McCulloch, safeties Kyrie Woods and Quentin Meeks. You're retaining a decent amount of those guys, who again, wasn't anything flashy by any means. It wasn't the big play defense that you would expect to see from a defense that was really good, but they got the job done. They were winning on third downs. They were a very effective unit when they needed to be. So really excited to see what the Boats do this year. But then the Roughnecks, Jarrett, I really hope I'm going to pronounce his name here right, but I believe it is Guarantano, will be the team's starting quarterback. He spent some time on the Broncos roster in 2022, practice squad with the Arizona Cardinals as well. He's getting guys like all USFL wide receiver Justin Hall and Isaiah Henney from Pittsburgh joining that wide receiver room, and then Mark Thompson going to be the lead running back for the team here. However, there is some concern with a knee sprain. He could potentially be missing this week 1 action and maybe even a little bit further into the year, so something worth keeping an eye on. You have TJ Pledger, who was his backup at Houston last year, and a wild card in Tion Evans, who I'm kind of excited to see get some action here early on, but I'm not too worried. I think the running back room is pretty solid over there in Houston. Defensively, this is a group to be excited about. You have guys like defensive end Chris Odom, who's been a stud through the last couple of seasons of spring football, from the USFL a couple of years ago to the XFL last year. Reuben Foster, a former first-round NFL selection. Defensive tackle Keontae Shad, Carlo Kemp, Toby Johnson. Up front, especially on that defensive line and even into some of that front seven there, you've got a very stout unit over in Houston, and I would not be surprised to see them create a ton of problems, whether it's creating pressure and breaking down the pocket or just stuffing teams at the line of scrimmage on run plays. This is a unit to really keep an eye on here, because I think they might end up being one of the toughest units to go up against week in and week out for anybody that they're facing. But overall, as far as this matchup goes here, I think we're going to see a little bit more of a defensive affair. That's just kind of what I'm feeling from these two units. There's a lot of changing going on offensively for both of these teams here, so I do think it kind of leans towards the defensive side of things. And with that being said, in what I think should be, again, low-scoring, tighter affair, fun contest though, I am leaning, and it might be the fandom in me, Houston Roughnecks 17-16 for the win. I think we get a really good game here. Should be really fun to watch, but I do think that the Roughnecks edge out the Memphis Showboats by a hair here, just by a hair. I'm really excited for this matchup though, and I'm glad that it's going to be the last game on Sunday as well. Should cap off a really fun weekend and slate of games. But those are my picks for week 1 of the UFL. Let me know in the comment section down below. What are you looking forward to? Who do you think's going to win? What games did I get wrong? Fire away. I want to hear from you all. I hope you're as excited as I am. I'm very much looking forward to following the UFL this season, and I hope you are as well. But as always, if you made it to the end, I greatly appreciate it. I'll see you all next time. Have a good one.